Right, Maria, thank you. Uh, I'll keep asking you questions about Venezuela. I find it very interesting.
Yeah,
And all right, then, let's get going where we left off yesterday. Yesterday, we were uh, talking about the fact value dichotomy that the positivists had posited. And I had told you that they wanted the elimination of two things uh, from the study of society in order to create a social science. The one thing that they wanted to eliminate was philosophy, which they claimed brought in ethics and morality into the study of society. And I gave you a couple of examples of Machiavelli uh, saying that ends justify means, wherein he gave no place whatsoever to ethics or morality to uh, take part in the political process. On the other hand, I gave you the other example, which is Gandhi. Uh, Let me say Mahatma Gandhi, otherwise you might think Sonia Gandhi, Rahul Gandhi, none of these Gandhis. M.K. Gandhi. And M.K. Gandhi had believed that there was going to be no possibility of separating means and ends. Any means are achieved through ends which were not, what should we say, which were not really moral. They could not justify our attaining our goals. It is not just the goal that had to be attained, it had to be attained through means that were ethical. That is the point that I was making yesterday about philosophy. So, that is in brief that I have talked about today. We'll have to come back to this point again when we talk about Max Weber. Now, if you look at what I had told you yesterday, the reasons for eliminating history from the study of society and the creation of a social science. The reasons were absolutely the same reasons that were given for the elimination of philosophy. Okay, the basic point here being um, both philosophy and history brought with them indefiniteness. There was no way in which you can uh, establish that one is better than the other factually. Okay, so you can't say that Machiavelli was not as good as Gandhi, because Gandhi was somebody who said, I talked to you about the Chowri Chowra incident yesterday, and I told you that he suspended the nationalist movement when the movement turned violent. And he said, we don't want freedom that comes through violence. So he said, thank you very much. We'll stop the agitation. And he did for quite some time. And he had to kind of work. hard to bring that peace back into the freedom movement and along with it, restart the movement again. Okay, so it becomes a subjective kind of a thing. These are the words that you have to be sensitive to. It becomes a subjective kind of thing if you say one has to be ethical in the achieving of one's goals. One of the examples I gave you yesterday was if you're writing an examination, if there is somebody you can copy from and you copy from that person and pass, it doesn't matter. The idea was that you have to pass. So you pass the examination. It doesn't matter if you copy from someone else. But if you believe in ethics, if you believe in morals, then uh, basically you will say that is not correct. You don't know the answer to the questions that have been given to you. Looking at somebody else's paper, copying that down, and uh, giving it to people is of a correction is not a correct thing to do. You're cheating. So cheating is a bad thing. Okay. Now, therefore, it's better if you fail the exam by not copying than to pass the exam by copying. Now, the typical positivist question to this kind of a thing would be, on what basis have we arrived at this particular conclusion that whatever we do has to be ethical or moral? Um, and that which is not ethical or moral is not acceptable. What is the basis of this conclusion? That is the question that will be asked by positivists. Is there anything intrinsically wrong? It's almost like utilitarian principle. Okay, you have two kinds of utilitarianism. One utilitarianism is that which is called rule utilitarianism. Another utilitarian is that which is called act utilitarianism. Okay, so what is rule utilitarianism? If you believe in rule utilitarianism, then you believe that there are certain rules which are good in the way in which they have been constructed. And therefore, any action that you follow by adhering to the rule that has been created is a good thing to do. That is rule utilitarianism. So let's put a silly question here. In more countries in the world, people drive on the right side of the road. There may be less countries, but a sizable number of countries and people drive on the left side of the road. So if you look at it that way, if you go by the rule utilitarianism, then it should be you should only drive on the right. That is the correct way to do it. Driving on the left produces deleterious effects. But does it? It doesn't. Because you have examples of both countries that drive on the right side of the road, and you have countries that drive on the left side of the road. In India, we can drive anywhere. That's a good thing with us. Okay, so this is rule utilitarianism. If the rule is that driving on the right side of the road is correct, then you oughtn't to be driving on the left side of the road, but people are driving on the left side of it. So that's not a sustainable argument. Then you have the other form of utilitarianism, which is called uh, act utilitarianism. Act utilitarianism is you judge if something is good or bad, an action is good or bad, based on the results that it produces. If it produces results which basically say, something like uh, you you say, like for example, what the Israelis are doing uh, in the Palestinian region. Uh, they have been occupying the Gaza Strip. They have been uh, going up to the Golan Heights. And when Israel was created, it was created with the idea that there'll be a two-nation uh, theory there. One nation for the Palestinians and one nation for the Israelites. Now, but what has happened is that Israel is not honoring that commitment. Not only is it not honoring that commitment, it is something that is trying to push its way into uh, the territories that had originally agreed as being Palestinian territories, even by Israel. Okay, but they are West Bank, Gaza Strip, all these. So they are trying to enlarge their presence. And so if you look at Israel, um, Israel is not acting ethically, is what some people will tell you. So the acts of Israel are condemned by many different fora across the world who say that Israel has not kept to its word. Not only has it not kept to its word, it has also uh, gone into the opposite side, which is, you know, uh, occupation of Palestinian territories. So they say that this is not ethically sustainable. And at the time of the formation of Israel itself, post Second World War, what was the objection raised by many people? They said you cannot go and create a nation in a piece of land by claiming that this is the land that has been called the land of milk and honey, and that it has been, what should I say, it has been something that has uh, uh, that is based purely in mythology. So you can't bring mythology and say, this is our land. It's like India going into Iran and saying uh, the predecessor of uh, of Shiva, Rudra. If you look at the uh, Vedas, they seem to indicate that Rudra, many people think Shiva and Rudra are the same. They are not. Uh, they say Rudra was there earlier to Shiva and he was near Israel. Okay, and Shiva is a Tibetan. Okay, so today can you go and say we have uh, the world's Shaivite devotees and Rudra devotees in India only, and our epics, our Vedas, they tell us that these were in these areas. So give Tibet back to us, give Iran back to us. Is it possible? Can you, on the basis of mythology, say, give me back this nation to me, or give me back this land to me? This is mine. Okay. So if you look at these kind of instances, then the basic problem is that in generating politics and governance around these kind of issues, you're bringing in a philosophy, or you're bringing in an epic, or you're bringing in something which is not something that you can see. You can't say, look, that's where Rudra was. Rudra was God knows when. Okay, so that is not the basis for claiming that this is my land. Okay, that's not the basis for claiming that this is my land. So, what you must remember is that these kind of values, these kind of ethics, these are the ones that are disruptive. They are disruptive in the sense that they play with logic as far as the positivists are concerned. So it's not just philosophy, it's not just ethics, it's also history. What I just gave you is an example of history. Where have you drawn your history of Israel being the land of milk and honey, promised by God to Jews? You have drawn it from ancient texts, Torah, Talmud. Okay, what is the validity of those texts today? If you say that I consider this to be my holy beacon and I will, act as per the ethics prescribed in it, that is one thing, and that is probably acceptable. But to say that this says this land is mine and therefore give this land back to me now, that is not acceptable. That is really not acceptable. Okay, so therefore, what you have to remember is that the argument that the positivists are making is that by taking recourse to those things which are not scientific, by taking recourse to those things which are not fact-based, you cannot show that as fact. Okay, so if that is how it is, then how can it be the basis of reliable knowledge? How can it be the basis of complete knowledge? That can't be the basis of all these things. Okay, so therefore people say that what these kind of things lack is facticity, or factual dimension. So what is a fact then? A fact is that which cannot be disputed, that which can be demonstrated as being right. Demonstrated as being right. Okay, that is a fact. If you say there were floods in my colony a couple of years ago. If I have taken photographs of myself standing on the road uh, with water above my knees, then I can say that this is a fact. I'm standing in a huge pool of water. My colony is flooded, and therefore it is a bit difficult for me to live my life like this. So I want you to change the elevations, the depressions on the road, and make sure that it flows the water instead of getting stuck at one place and flooding the colony. So that is facticity. But you cannot say that, you know, some 300 years ago, when the Musi River flooded, uh, people went and stood on the Nawbat Pahad and saved their lives. So now also you can do the same thing. Please go stand on Nawbat Pahad. 300 years ago, Hyderabad was very different from what it is today. So you can't suggest a 300-year-old solution to a problem at this point in time. So history is always something which is in a certain point in time. Okay, so if you say uh, it was a battle of Plassey that made sure that the French lost their fight for setting up colonies in India, then yes, that is a fact because there are known documents. But if you start talking about uh, these things in a subjective way, which is, it's a good thing the French lost. Otherwise, we would have had two colonial powers instead of one ruling us. Or somebody says, no, why should it be two colonial powers or three colonial powers or one colonial power? That's colonialism. Why should we be subjected to colonialism at all? Then the debate begins. And it can be made very, very awkward, like it is being done by the Modi Bhakts today. They tell you that India, Hindutva, which is Savarkar's idea. Hindutva is everything here once belonged to the Hindus. People who came here and settled down now are actually not people of this land. So they face the problem of, are the Aryans people of this land? They are perforce made to argue that yes, Aryans are original inhabitants of India. Then the question is, if you read the Vedas, and why are they going towards the West? And from the West, why are they moving? The Rig Veda is to the western side, and the Atharvana Veda, which is the last of the Vedas, is on completely to the east side. It goes to Cambodia, Angkor Wat, and all those kind of things. Okay, so now, will you basically construct a history based upon convenience and say this is our land? Anybody who came here is not the actual dweller. of this land. Then one can ask a very, very simple question. What about this big communities of Indians with battering rams going and battering the uh, doors of the United States of America, the European countries, and saying we want to come in. We want to have our possibility of studying here. We want to have the possibility of working here. Why are you going from here then? If this is your land, if Hindus have exclusive uh, right over this land, then stay here. Why are you going into Christian territories? Why are you going into Muslim territories? Why are you going to Bahrain? Why are you going to Qatar? Why are you going to all these countries? And the biggest farce is the Telangana agitation. The Telangana agitation, I don't know if any of you knows this, was funded by non-resident Indian Telanganites in America. Okay, you've taken your caste system from here and put it there. So the Telugus, you have a TANA, TANA, Telugu Association of North America. And what does this do? This says it's run by the Kamas, and they are focused upon coastal Andhra. Then there was ANATA, American Telugu Association, which was run by Reddys of Telangana. Okay, money kept coming into Telangana, into coastal Andhra from the United States of America to have their claims on the land as it is. Sons of the soil was the argument of the Telangana people. Who is funding the sons of the soil? And how have you established that somebody is a son of the soil, is a son of the soil? How have you established that? There is no way you can establish the son of the soil argument. Because in India, people have moved freely at one time, and that has basically led to the different kinds of linguistic congregations that happened. For example, you say Andhra, coastal Andhra, it's there. But the real Andhra is the one which is between Pune and Bombay. A particular stretch, if you're traveling by train, you will see one big board somewhere between Khandala and Lonavala. It says Andhra Valley Power Corporation. So Andhra Valley is there. The Shatavahanas started there. Okay, and they made their empire pretty big. And so they came into this. They came more into Telangana than they went into Andhra. If you look at the map of the empire of this Shatavahanas. So the point that I'm trying to make is all these histories that people make up are the ones that basically add to the uncertainty over real knowledge. Okay, another system you can see is the caste system. What does the caste system say? The caste system says that it's a Chaturvarna system originally. Okay, and it says it is found in the Purusha Sukta, which is a part of the Rig Veda. And there you have these four. The Purusha Sukta is a primeval being. Those who came out of his thighs were the Shudras who did work. Those who came out of his stomach were the Vaishyas who traded, even grew crops. And those who protected all this that was being done were the Kshatriyas. And the holders, they were the shoulders, the Kshatriyas. The holders of all the knowledge were Brahmins, who came from the mouth of the this particular being, the primeval being. I wanted to check out these things, so I started reading them in Sanskrit. It's a laborious thing to do, but I'm doing it. In the Rig Veda, there is no Chaturvarna system. There is no Purusha Sukta, which is a part of the Rig Veda. In the Rig Veda, there is only acknowledgement of two communities, not castes. One who grew food and the other who stood guard. That's all. There is no Chaturvarna system in the Rig Veda. Okay?
So what was this? One grew food and other?
One grew food and the others guarded.
Acha, okay. Okay.
So there are only two groups there. There aren't four groups. And then people said, you have the Manudharma Shastra, which is again something that has been wonderfully extrapolated in the Rig Veda. But the Rig Veda is something that came into being prior to the 10th century BCE. How much prior is a bit difficult to calculate, but it is definitely prior to 10th century BCE, because 10th century BCE is when Parshvanatha founded Jainism against the Aryans. Okay, and if you look at when Manu is not a name, it's a title of a lawgiver. When was Manu born? 313 BCE. So people, what did they do? They interpolated the Purusha Sukta, they interpolated Manu into the Rig Veda and created this. It's an uncertainty. When finally people were able to crack the place of birth of Manu, which is Calcutta, and Calcutta was never called Kolkata, by the way. It was Kalikata. Okay, Manu was born there. And Manu wrote his laws and then he called it Dharma Shastra. But over a period of time, people understood that what Manu had written had nothing to do with dharma, neither was it a shastra. So it was not called Manodharma Shastra. It was relegated simply to Manusmriti. Smriti are memories. Why are these memories? These are memories because at that time Sanskrit didn't have uh, a language uh, which what should we say is which had a script. So when people spoke Sanskrit, in fact, I received an interesting video. Some idiot added why Brahmins were intelligent to it. If you look at that video, nowhere in the video do you find anybody saying anything about some Brahmin. They only refer to ancient Indians. Okay, and they say that it is just repeated chanting of the Veda that actually made the human brain of ancient Indians activate so many other structures which are not activated in other brains of other human beings in other parts of the world. So that is what you need to understand. I'll send you the video. Don't read the Brahmin thing. He's an idiot. He needs to be shot dead. Whoever who added that Brahmin thing. It has nothing to do with Brahmins. All kinds of people were eligible. You must have seen, if you've seen the story of the Ramayana, if you've seen the story of Mahabharata, all these princes and all of them studied Vedas. They went to a guru ashrama and they studied Vedas there. So this is not the exclusive preserve of the Brahmins. Anybody could study, only they needed to have the inclination to do so. That's all. So that's why it's correctly being pushed to the idea of a Manusmriti. And believe me, if you don't know a word of it, in no way are you impoverished. It's a stupid text. It has no reason to exist. So don't read it. Don't read the Purusha Sutta. Read the Rig Veda without these two. You'll get a completely different picture. Okay? And if you come to the third Veda, Sama Veda, is nothing but a rehashing of the Rig Veda, but to a poetic meter, to a song meter. So the Veda, the recitation is like a song. They've only added 70 shlokas to the Sama Veda, and none of them contain any, should we say, references to either Manu or to the other thing, which is the Purusha Sutta. Okay. So what I'm trying to say, therefore, is the positivist argument about these things is that if you go into history, if you go into the past, then everything is a matter of contention. Now, I'm contending against the idea that there is a Chaturvarna system in the Vedas. Somebody, you think they'll just let me get away with this argument? No. Somebody will argue and say, you're talking rubbish. You don't know what you're talking. The Chaturvarna system is there, and all that kind of thing. Okay, so it is a constant argument. You're struggling against each other and saying that this is correct, you are not correct. So that is uncertainty. And that kind of uncertainty for the positivists was not acceptable, because the moment you introduce an uncertain variable into the pursuit of knowledge, then the pursuit of knowledge itself becomes uncertain. And you cannot come to decisive and correct and provable conclusions. You can't come to those. So they said natural sciences, like I told you yesterday, not ones that are biological, but that which are physical, sciences dealing with nature. Okay, those natural sciences had demystified a great bit of what were considered, natural phenomena, which are actually supernatural. That's what people said. But over the period of time, I told you after the resolutive compositive method, with the progress of scientific inquiry, then you see that there is a demystification of nature. There is a demystification of nature. So that was seen as an extremely desirable thing, but something that was not happening in the study of society, because we were not able to create what do we call a social science. So what they wanted to do was to get rid of these two variables, history, philosophy, and if you like, texts. They wanted to get rid of all those things from the study of society, and by avoiding these, by removing these, they wanted to create a proper, an absolutely proper social science, which will have all the qualities of a natural science. Obviously, it is probably a laudable attempt, but that attempt's failure was something that was there in the seeds of the attempt itself. In the seeds of the attempt itself. Now you're talking about natural history, sorry, natural sciences. If you're talking about natural sciences, can you talk about natural sciences without talking about history? Because all forms of knowledge has history. When we start studying political science, when we are trying to understand politics, when we are trying to understand nature, not nature, sorry, the state, what do? We do go back into history. And nowadays we say, please don't say things like, uh, you know, state and government in ancient India, because ancient India did not have state, neither did it have government. Ancient India had those folk republics, which are called the Janapadas, and some of them call the progression to bigger kingdoms as Mahajanapadas, but they should technically be called kingdoms or empires, because the Mauryan Empire is cited as a Mahajanapada. It is not a Mahajanapada, but you have a king. Whereas in a Janapada, you have the Panchayat system, you have a Samiti system. So there is a Sarpanch, and 4 people are drafted by parties which are in dispute in order to settle the scores or settle whatever, get a verdict of who is in the right and who is in the wrong. That is what we would have seen in the Panchayat Samiti system. This system didn't exist in the Maurya system. Okay, I actually, to be very honest with you, thought Mahatma Gandhi was a great man, but he was not much of a scholar. And talked all kinds of things. But I realized over a long period of time, after reading most of his writings, that he's a brilliant scholar as well. He's a wonderful scholar of history. He's a scholar of legality. He is a scholar who can compare different systems and say this is better for us. And I seriously think we missed an opportunity when Gandhi said at the time of independence, India lives in its villages. So what we should have is a Gram Swaraj, not Desh Swaraj. Okay? And many people today, if you hear all these Modi bugs and haters of Nehru and Gandhi, they tell you that Gandhi was an idiot. He picked up a bigger idiot called Nehru to be the prime minister of this country. And together they ruined the country. You must understand one thing. Gandhi and Nehru had their huge differences. Gandhi wanted, like I said, the panchayat system in independent India. Nehru didn't want that. Nehru, on the other hand, wanted a global village, which he called a globality. And he wanted industries, which Gandhi didn't want. Gandhi wanted only handicrafts. But Nehru wanted industries. A famous temple. Industries and dams are the modern temples of India. So it is very different from Gandhi. So please don't get confused by that rubbish either. Now, the point that I'm trying to make is, can you eliminate history from the study of your society? More importantly, you said natural science is unencumbered by philosophy and by history. Has natural science grown by getting rid of philosophy and history? There is ample evidence to say that neither of those two is correct. If you remember, we started with the ancient Greeks, and I had spoken to you about Alexander, and I had spoken to you about his fascination with things that fall. Why do they have a tendency to fall? That was a question that was revived by Galileo. And Galileo conducted cannonball experiments where he shot these cannonballs out of cannons at varying speeds, with varying force. And he was able to say by the use of force and by attaining a certain kind of velocity, you can defy the tendency to fall for a certain time. Everybody tells you Galileo was sitting and watching through the telescope as if he was some kind of a voyeur. He wasn't a voyeur. Okay? And he just didn't sit and watch things through the telescope. He did that, no doubt, but that was not the only thing he did. He also did this cannonball experiments. At that time, while he was still in the middle of those experiments, the church said that he's a threat to the church and to the Christian religion. So they threatened to execute him. And in order to save his life, he said, I'm sorry, I was under the influence of Satan. And that is why I said all these things. So they incarcerated him in his own house. They said he's somebody who's potentially a threat to Christianity and to humanity. Okay, so that's how his investigations were cut short. Right? And again, we are told a stupid story that there was this gentleman called Newton who sat under a tree and an apple fell on his head. And, because the apple fell on his head, he wondered, why did the apple fall on his head? Why didn't it go up? So I told you once about a cartoon. Please excuse me, I'll repeat that, but it's a bit risque. The cartoon says, this is a classic cock and bull story. Because what did Newton think all those years that he was urinating? Did he not wonder why was the urine not going up? That's like that. So people also insert these cock and bull stories into uh, those stories which already are complicated. Okay. And so the thing is, starting from Anaximander, way back in the Milesian period, before the Asiatic period, before the Athenian period, before all great Greek periods and the Roman period, in the modern period, thanks to the Renaissance, people were able to get access to that knowledge again. And they started their, what should I say? They started their investigations on that. And when they did their investigations on that, they found different answers. Like, for example, Newton said time is a category of physics and that it cannot be changed. Right? So, the example he himself gave is, think of a tap which has a dripping, water. Drop by drop, water is dripping there. Now you're not there. Nobody is there. But that doesn't mean that water is not dripping. The water is dripping. So he calls it time. He calls time as being an immutable part of physics. But you will find Einstein's theory of relativity, which talks differently. I don't want to make this a lesson in that. I'll shut up today, stop at this point. And well, I have a bit of a good news for you. You don't have to listen to me tomorrow. I'm saying as if I take classes every day and wring your necks and put you to. I take one class and then some 200 weeks, no more classes. Well, that is because I'm a cripple, but I am feeling better. So I have started the classes, but tomorrow I have to meet a kid. Now, this is a very fascinating thing. Just let me tell you the story in 2 minutes. In the last 3 months, I have met two kids. Okay, both intermediate first year. Both are in intermediate first year. One of them talks about Georgy Lukács. He talks about critical theory. He talks about Adorno. Fairly knowledgeable. Fairly knowledgeable. I mean, remember, they are still kids. Nobody has taught them the stuff. They've learned it on their own. So this chap talks about all these things. And his parents wanted him to do engineering. He said, no, I won't do engineering. If I do anything, I'll do only philosophy or some social science, which is allied with philosophy. So his father put him in front of me. I was sufficiently impressed to tell his father, yes, let him do some social science. If he has philosophy in it, great. So now I have to meet him again to clarify his doubts. So he has decided that he'll come at 5:30. And those of you who hear me know that if I start talking, I don't shut up. So I don't know till when that will go on. So I don't want to ruin your day. Since I ruined your Bakrid, I'll give you off tomorrow as compensation. The other chap I met, this kid, he is a Marxist. And the amount of Marxism that he knows, though quite a bit of it is doctrinaire, it's like being brainwashed. But for such a kid, the confidence with which he talks about Marxism, he talks about revisionism of Edward Bernstein, he talks about dialectics of nature of Friedrich Engels. He talks about how Hegel's dialectic is warped. So that's where I stop with him and say, okay, I'm impressed. You know quite a few things beyond your reach, but you don't know everything. Hegel's dialectic is not warped on very much on the other hand, it's actually Engels' dialectic which is warped. And Engels and Marx do not share this idea on dialectical materialism. Dialectical materialism is an Engelsian idea. Historical materialism is a Marxist idea. So I told him, you are now beginning to fumble and create all kinds of categories. So, well, he'll also turn up someday, but fortunately, he said he'll turn up on a Sunday, which is good. So, but I'm really impressed. You know, teachers in Osmania University, if you make them sit in front of these two kids and listen to them, they won't understand a word, a signal word. Just imagine Chandru, Venkateshwarlu, all these people sitting and they won't understand a word. So there is hope. That's what I'd say. There is hope. Otherwise, it was looking all very hopeless. But seeing these two kids, there is hope. So thank you very much. But I need a small answer from you. Do we as usual, take Saturday off. Sunday is off. I think we should take Saturday off because you will have several things to do on Saturdays and Sundays, usually. Ladies,
Also.
take it off. Saturday, we don't meet. We meet on Monday next. Is that okay?
Okay. I guess it's okay. Mhm.
Chetana,
See you.
Yeah, sir. Sure, sir. Okay, sir.
we'll meet on Monday.
Okay, sir.
Okay, sir.
Everybody seems to have agreed on that.
Hello?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, yes, okay.
Yeah. Everybody needs a break from migraine inducing exercises like mine. Okay. So thank you very much. See you on Monday.
See you.
Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Bye.
Bye, sir.